It's a deal. Those are the sweetest words to be heard in real estate. But I've got a question for you. How can you really know that you got the best deal in those negotiations? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to share in this video 4 techniques that is going to ensure that you know that you have got the best deal. But before I do, there's one foundational principle about negotiations that you must understand. And Chris Voss said it the best way possible. Negotiations is not a battle, but it is a process of discovery. And that is where Hollywood gets it wrong. See, Hollywood is going to show you negotiations on the phone, getting aggressive back and forth, and that's really not the truth of real estate negotiations. It is a process of discovery. It is trying to understand what the other party, their most important needs are, or where they're willing to find the agreement. So what does that mean for you? The baseline for you is you have to understand where is your bottom line. Now, when looking to purchase a home, you may be thinking bottom line of like, what is the least I'm willing to pay for the house? Now, you and I both know if a house was for sale for $1,500 and it was in great condition and it was just dialed in, the first thought we would think is, what is wrong with the place? But we would be willing to pay $1,500 for a mansion, right? So it's not the lowest end that you're willing to pay. It's actually the most amount of money you're willing to pay. That is your bottom line. For the opposite party, a seller, their bottom line is what's the least amount of money they're willing to accept. Because the same is true. If it is a small house that's worth $300,000, but you offer $1 million, that seller's not going to go, you know, I don't think it's worth $1 million, so no, that's not going to happen. No, they would take it. They would take that offer and find a way to get that closed. So those two angles of what's the least amount of sellers going to accept and the most amount of money you're comfortable paying for that home actually can overlap, and that's called the zone of possible agreement. Now, in negotiating terms, we call that ZOPA, finding the ZOPA, which is kind of fun, like finding the ZOPA, right? But that just means where could a possible agreement come together? And so the foundation of any negotiation is truly understanding what is your bottom line. And it's the bottom line not only for price, but when you'd like it to close, any items you'd like to have included into the sale. There's other terms that are addendas or contingencies that you would like to have covered in the sale. All of those things are areas in which there could be a possible agreement. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get to the 4 techniques to ensure that you get the best deal, because these 4 techniques will allow you to really find that zone of possible agreement. And the first one is one that isn't utilized all that often from the aspect of I've seen it actually cause somebody to pay more for a home than they were really comfortable with, but this is called the walkaway technique. Now, it's very, very risky, and that's why it's probably not utilized so much, because of its risk in a real estate transaction. So the walkaway technique is simply this. Whenever you come at an impasse of a negotiation, or you come up against where there's just no movement, stepping away from the negotiating table, ending the conversations, can actually reignite something down the road. Time becomes your friend. And so what happens is, when that happens, I have a verbiage that I will say to the other party. I'll say, hey, looks like we can't come together with the deal. You know, unfortunately, that just means we need to step away from this conversation. If your side ever changes their mind or would like to re-engage, feel free to reach out. But until then, we're going to actually go look for a different opportunity, or we're going to go pursue a different opportunity depending on the situation. Now, if my party comes to me and says, Zach, reach out to them again, we have just lost, because now that party knows that we're really not that serious of truly walking away, and so therefore they'll stick on their position and not make any moves. Now, but if we stay away and time becomes our friend, they're still sitting on the market, that's when they'll reach out and that's when the magic happens. And it happens, folks. The call comes in, hey, is your folks still in the market? I believe they are. And so then we start those conversations. Now, number 2 is called urgency. Urgency can actually really work against you in a negotiation when employed against you. Urgency really makes you feel like you're going to miss out on this opportunity unless you act right now. I mean, marketers do that beautifully, saying you only have until midnight to get this deal, and once this deal is over, it's never coming back. That's exactly what happens in a real estate negotiation, is that one of the parties may enact urgency. Now, from this perspective, to make sure that you have a good deal, you could always enact urgency to say, hey, if I don't hear from you by this point, we're going to be moving on to a different opportunity. But if you go ahead and agree now, we can just go ahead and move forward. I'm ready to accept, these terms. And that can actually, depending on the market, can actually get a seller to go, oh no, they're going to be moving on to something else, so we might need to accept something. We need to accept this offer as it is. So urgency can work with you, but it could also work against you. So it's incredibly important to make sure when in that process of negotiations, knowing whether it can work for you or if someone's trying to work it against you. Because again, it can turn up the heat, it can create pressure, because in a negotiation for real estate, again, it's not a battle, it's a process of discovery. We have a party that's wanting to sell and a party that's wanting to buy. And so no one is being held against their will. And the seller really wants to sell the house. A buyer really wants to buy a house. And so it's really trying to find how can we get that. And urgency can sometimes get someone that's looking to sell off waiting and make that move. Now, the third one is, this is where I find that people outside of real estate call negotiating. It is called extreme anchors, or better known as, why don't we meet in the middle? I don't know about you, but this happens in used cars purchases, or even buying furniture or appliances. You go to that location, what is selling, that there is a negotiation. You offer a lower price than what it's listed at. The hope is that if the seller doesn't accept it, you can actually create a middle ground and say, hey, why don't we just meet in the middle once they reject your first offer. Now, in real estate, this can work, but I have seen it actually work against someone trying to employ it, because what it can actually do is, if it's offensively low for that seller, they will not respond, nor will they ever communicate with you, because they don't look at you as a serious buyer. So when employing it, you really want to understand where they're at in their process of selling a home. Then provide them a low offer, knowing that they're most likely not going to accept a low offer. Now, if they accept that low offer, either A, you just got a steal of a deal, or B, there's something you don't quite know about the house that they were just willing to move on. Most times it's that, hey, you got a steal of a deal, but just to be cautious, if you set that extreme anchor and they accept it, make sure you fully understand everything about that home. Now, if they reject it, which is the most likely aspect of it, they may come back to a price that is slightly below the price that they have it listed for. And that is where you say, hey, why don't we just meet in the middle? Now, to understand this, you've actually established the middle ground, not the seller. And so it's one of those things, it's a technique to make sure that you get the very best deal. Now, number 4, this is called concession guilt. Now, concession guilt sounds really, really funky, but like I said earlier in the video, price is not everything. There is contingencies. There are things included in the sale. There's close dates. And so fully understanding what that other party needs in the sale And if you say, hey, you know, that just doesn't really work for us, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you, now you can guilt them into getting what is your important term. And so I've seen it where, hey, we've given you already that close date because we know how incredibly important it is. Just meet us at the price because we're so close. Like we've already given you so much. Just help us win right here. And again, we have willing parties, someone that wants to sell, someone that wants to buy. And it's not a battle. And so it's something from this aspect of employing concession guilt. You can actually get the other party to move a little bit because you already gave them something. Now, if you know that that's not a big deal for you, you could still let them know it is, right? Like, oh, that was hard for me to do, even though you're like, who cares? So that is something from an aspect to make sure that you really get a good deal. Now, these 4 techniques are not ironclad. Those, they can be used for you, or you got to be careful in those real estate negotiations. They can actually be used against you by the other party. And so it's incredibly important to have a trusted advisor, someone that is well-versed in the art of real estate negotiations. Notice how I said the art of real estate negotiations. Negotiation is a dance, just like my friend Chris Voss said. It is a process of discovery. You are dancing to an outcome, not battling to an outcome. And so it's always important to have a trusted professional. Now, I'm always going to recommend someone that holds the RENE certification through the National Association of Realtors, or better known as Real Estate Negotiating Expert. I actually earned mine a few years ago, and I feel like that course really helped me up my game on my real estate negotiations. Now, I also hold the designation, the Certified Negotiating Expert, and it is something that I continually work on in my real estate career, because once I start to relax, that's when someone uses one of those pesky little techniques against me, and I have to remember, how do I contend with that? How do I dance with that dance partner to counter their move? And so I hope that you found value in this video. What I would love to know is if there's a technique that you'd like me to cover in my next real estate negotiating video, please put that in the comments below. Or if you have a scenario where you've seen these actually happen, share that down below and you can start to see this beautiful dance of a real estate negotiation. Until next time, I really hope that you, again, will get a trusted professional in those real estate negotiations, someone that fully understands how to ask the other party discovery questions to really know what the best process is in uncovering their needs. But thanks again for watching. I hope that you had a great time with me. I had fun. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because we have some amazing content at the Positive Change Real Estate team that continues to come out. Hit that bell button so you're notified when it comes out. And remember, today is a great day that you can #create positive change. Take care, everyone.